we want to welcome Brian Hart, our speaker today. And I want to tell you something about him in case you weren't with us the last time he presented for Chat and Chew. He is an educator. From the beginning, he was an educator because he was a teacher, then a middle school principal. And as being an educator, I say middle school's the toughest. So if you can be a middle school principal, you can do anything. He also was an outward bound instructor, and he was a wilderness EMT, a plant-based chef with certification from the Ruby Plant-Based Cooking School, that certification. He also does other things. I know it's hard to believe, besides being the executive director of the Esselstyn Foundation, there'd be time for anything else. But he also is an endurance athlete. He's done 4 Ironman. He's preparing for another long distance run, I believe, marathon, 60 miles. Brian, you'll have to tell us about that. He does events in skiing and also in biking. So he's an all-around athlete. One of the things that impressed me is, besides his educational degree from Dickinson College and a master's also, and this was in curriculum and design and instruction. And one of the things he also has certification in is Montessori adolescence educator endorsement. Now, that program, for you that aren't in education, is a really hands-on, an interactive approach. So that's what we like about what he can do for us. He can help us understand how to make the easy choice, the healthy choice, as we hang on during the Christmas holidays, and then greet the new year, eager to go. So Brian, welcome.
Thank you so much. What a nice introduction, Kathy. Thanks so much. Always great to be back with the Chat and Chew folks. So I'm broadcasting here from kind of a drizzly Cleveland, Ohio, but I guess that's the nature of our weather these days. We don't want to really talk about global warming. It's too political. But anyway, it's not snowing. It's just sort of raining. But anyway, thanks so much. So great to be back. Today's talk, I hope, is a good one. It's really about, as we enter into this holiday season, which is such an interesting time as eaters, as people who are trying to be healthy eaters, and to talk a little bit about some of the research out there around what helps us make healthier choices, and to really think about what I call plant strongifying your home, making your home a bit more of a place where healthy eating is encouraged. And this is such an interesting topic because I know many of you out there are probably pretty strong plant-based eaters, but a lot of times you have people in your household that you're trying to get to make healthier choices too. And so that's an interesting piece of this whole puzzle. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully it works. Again, my name is Brian Hart. I'm the executive director of the Esselstyn Foundation. This is an organization we're going to talk a little bit more about at the end of the talk about the Esselstyn Foundation, but I'll just say right now, we are a 501c3 public charity. Many of you probably know about it or support us, even more importantly. And our mission is to get this information, this transformational, I should say, information out about the power of plant-based eating in terms of disease prevention and in many cases reversal. And we formed this organization to make sure that everybody had access to this type of information, that it was not just for people who would go away to very expensive immersions or what have you, and that we really wanted to make sure everybody had access to it. So we partner with existing nonprofits all over the world to get this message out. All right. Now, I always think it's important because I'm never quite sure who's on the call. We might have some people who are plant curious, as we say. And so I like to quickly review. It'll take about 7 minutes or something, but I like to review what I call our 7 pillars, because I know you have lots of different speakers come on Chat and Chew. And just to be clear about what the Esselstyns, when they say plant strong or plant-based, I want to make sure you understand what we are talking about. And this will, again, just take a few minutes, and then we'll dive into today's topic about surviving the holidays. So quickly, again, I'll rip through this, but, people, the first question we often get when we talk about plant-based eating, well, what in the world do you eat? Which, of course, for those of you who've made the transition, it's such a silly question, but it's a great question. There are no dumb questions. And really, there's so many amazing things we can eat. Of course, we're eating as many possible vegetables as we can. We especially love leafy greens. If there's one thing you get from today's talk is the power of leafy greens. There are so many vegetables out there, but leafy greens are nature's powerhouse. They're full of so many amazing things, phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals. And as Dr. Esselstyn has shared, if you've ever followed anything that he's talked about, is the power of leafy vegetables to help to restore nitric oxide production in the body. And remember, nitric oxide is that magic gas that helps dilate our blood vessels. And so people who have heart disease have great difficulty dilating their blood vessels. And so that's why we love leafy greens. And let me just pick up speed here. So fruit, fresh or frozen. We're not big fans of smoothies, which I'll talk about in a moment. We love whole grains, all our amazing whole grains, brown rice, oats, quinoa, farro, bulgur, etc. When we're looking at any baked good, we're looking for words in the title, and I'll talk about that in a second, that in the ingredient list. We want to avoid oils, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But when we're talking about breads and pastas and tortillas, we want them to be whole grain, no white flour. White flour has been stripped of all of its healthy fiber. And remember, 95% of Americans are fiber deficient. So all the people out there taking all these Metamucils and these different things to get more fiber in their system, they just need to eat more whole grains. Legumes, there are over 100 types of legumes in the world. Americans probably eat about 5 of them, maybe. We want to get as many types of legumes. And if you follow anything that Dan Buettner's done with the blue zones, one of the main links between all the concentrations of centenarians in the world, these areas of the world that have the highest concentrations of people who live to be 100 or more, legumes is a foundational piece of their diet. Plant garnishes, we say be careful with these, but use them as a garnish, a little sprinkle to add flavor. But avocados, walnuts, chia seed, flaxseed, plant-based milks, dried fruit, these are things that are more calorie dense and they have more fat in them. Dr. Esselstyn, for his heart patients, really doesn't want them eating these things, but we say if you've got solid numbers and you're okay, just use them as a garnish. And then simple beverages, which I'll talk more about in a sec. All right, so what are you avoiding? Just to be clear, meat of any type. It's not that meat is evil. It's just that it's a dangerous package for the vitamins and minerals and things that you're getting. So yes, there are some good things in meat and dairy products too, but the problem is it's a really problematic package that they're wrapped in. There are much better ways to get all the things that meat and dairy have in them through the plant world. Eggs, of course, extracted oils. This is where Dr. Esselstyn gets a little pushback because he's not a fan of oils. And there's lots of research out there about the detrimental effect of oils on endothelial production. Also, their concentrated calories, which I'll discuss in a sec. Refined breads and pastas, like I mentioned, we want to eat our whole grains. We want to steer clear of any of the grains that have been stripped of their healthy exterior, which is where all the good fiber is. Refined sugars, we know about the dangers of white sugar. It's just empty calories. And then last but not least, highly processed vegan foods. Now, this is interesting. This is a development of the last 5 to 10 years. And I'm sure many of you are very familiar with this, is that these Impossible burgers, these Beyond burgers, and these Impossible meats, we love the concept of getting people away from eating meat products for the planet, for the health of the planet, but don't kid yourself. These are not healthy foods. These are not foods that are doing your body any favors. They're full of a lot of oil. Usually the second ingredient is coconut oil, the most saturated oil on the planet, even more than butter. So we don't like those things. Be careful. So pillar number 1 is eat more plants. I already mentioned this. You get all these amazing things out of plants, and you're steering clear of all the stuff that's problematic: saturated fats and trans fats and growth hormones and antibiotics and concentrated pollutants, especially in fish. So our friends that say, well, I eat fish. I still eat fish. What's wrong with fish? Well, remember, fish still has as much saturated fat in it as beef, pound for pound. It's a little bit less, but not drastically less. And remember, the oceans, fish swim through the ocean, and the ocean is full of lots of problematic chemicals these days because of pollution. And then what do the fish do? They filter it through their bodies. Every time they take a gulp, they filter it and it ends up in their system. And so you've got concentrations of all these nasty chemicals, including lead and things, not to mention the inflammatory properties of meat itself. And as I mentioned, we love leafy greens. Pillar 2, we want to eat whole foods, rolled whole, cracked, or stone ground when we're looking at baked goods. And we say avoid smoothies. And again, I'll talk about that in a second when I talk about calorie density. And we want these things to be as close to their natural state as possible. We're not raw foodies. Remember, there's a lot of evidence out there, especially when it comes to things like tomatoes, that cooking them actually improves the accessibility of all the good nutrients that are in the food. So eating raw foods, as much as that sounds good, it doesn't really, the research doesn't support that actually, making foods more palatable, not to mention being able to access the minerals and vitamins and things when you cook some of them, just depends on what vegetable you're talking about. Pillar 3, okay, this notion of calorie density, there's 2 reasons. Well, there's many reasons, of course, but there's 2 core reasons why we love plant-based foods. Number 1 is they have all this good stuff in them. But the second one that's often overlooked, I think, is clarified by this chart, which is, look, this is calories per pound. So we're talking about calorie density. And so vegetables and fruit and potatoes and whole grains, look how low they are on the calorie density scale. That means, in essence, you can eat lots of them, get filled up, but then not actually have taken on a lot of the calories. A lot of the people we work with, and as I'm sure many of you know, we have an obesity epidemic in this country. And so you can fill up, which is important. You want to feel satiated and full. But when you do that on a plant-based diet, you're filling up with a lot of water and fiber, which makes you feel full, but you haven't actually taken in a lot of calories. And then if you slide all the way down to the right side of the chart there, you see oil, 4,000 calories per pound. That's about 120 calories per tablespoon. And that is one of the reasons we don't like oil, but also not to mention the endothelial damage. But this is another reason we love plants and plant-based foods. Pillar 4, don't worry about protein. We get that question all the time. I know you have too. Most American adults eat about 100 grams of protein a day. It's about twice what they need. We want to get our protein levels down around 10%, and it's crazy how much people eat. And this is so easy to do if you're just eating a wide variety of plant foods. I mean, look at this chart here. Black beans, 15 grams, lentils, 18 grams. I actually charted it one day in my diet, and I looked at all the foods that I was eating. And by the end of the day, I had far exceeded my protein intake needs by simply just eating a wide variety of plant-based foods. No problem. Women need about 46 grams a day. Men need about 56 grams per day. Easily done if you're just eating a wide variety of plant foods. Protein is in everything. People forget that. Pillar 5. This is another calorie density thing, but you'd be amazed. And I know, again, I'm preaching to the choir, but it's good to review. When you're drinking your calories, you're not doing yourself any favors. We want you to eat your calories. Most American adults are picking up between 400 and 700 calories a day on liquid sources. And I think this graphic really helps you understand. If you're an average American and maybe you're having some orange juice with breakfast and maybe a latte and then a Coke with lunch and then an afternoon coffee, maybe some lemonade with your evening meal and then a white wine to relax, that's 800 calories you've taken in a day. And again, because we're looking at an obesity crisis in this country, we really want people to drink water, herbal teas, decaf coffee. Dr. Esselstyn's not a fan of caffeinated coffee. However, I must admit, and this is, all in the name of honesty, I do drink 1 cup of caffeinated coffee in the morning with a little bit of soy milk in it. But then if I want another cup in the afternoon, I'll drink decaf. But Dr. Esselstyn doesn't like caffeinated coffee because of the link with endothelial function damage. Last but not least, pillar 6, not last, we're almost last, is this notion of salt, sugar, and fat. You've got to be a label reading ninja and watch out for salt, sugar, and fat. These are pumped into all processed foods these days, except for a handful. And, Americans these days are picking up so many extra calories just by eating foods that have been processed. And we want to get our fat content down to around 10 15%. So read those labels and avoid anything that's got sugar in the first 5 ingredients. If it's got added oil, you're not doing yourself any favors. Not to mention, we have a whole separate presentation on label reading. If Chat and Chew ever wants me to come back and do our label, Ann and I team up for a label reading session, that we'd be happy to do that. Last but not least is moving your body. Anything you do to move your body is going to help you and benefit the amazing healthy diet you're eating for a variety of different reasons. But do remember, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. When you're young, possibly, you can for a while, but ultimately it catches up with you. And as Dr. Esselstyn always quotes, there's a great study about a number of marathon runners over the age of 50 that was done, and they followed 100 marathon runners who over the age of 50 who run at least 3 marathons a year. So these are very fit people. And they all, 90% of them had signs of coronary artery disease when they did the study. So again, even though you can be as fit as a fiddle when it comes to running, if you're eating a bad diet, it's not going to help you out. All right, let's jump into surviving the holidays. And the subtitle of this talk is Choice Architecture, which I'll explain, ways to encourage healthy eating. And this is something that really came out of the work that I was doing with the Esselstyn Foundation and with Plant Strong when we do our health immersions is I think what we've become quite good at is, there's the science of plant-based eating, which you can talk about only so much, because so much of the plant-based transition is about the how and the what, and how do I do this, and what are the tricks to get through this? Because you can only talk about the science so much, and it's there. The science is there, whether it's Dr. Esselstyn or Dr. Greger. I know you've had many of these amazing people on your talk, all these different doctors. Yes, the science is there. It supports it. But then there's the behavior change piece, which I became super interested in. And I didn't mention this in my bio because it's an old bio that you probably pulled from, but this week I graduate with my master's degree in social work. And so I've been working with drug addicts, which I'll talk more about in a sec, in my internship that I've been doing to get my master's degree in social work. And it's fascinating. A lot of the stuff that I've been talking about with drug addicts actually has a lot to do with what I'm talking to people about when it comes to food choices. Isn't that ironic? Or synchronic, if you want to call it that. So let's take a look. So just to keep everybody awake, why don't you jump in the chat box? And I have the chat box pulled up here. What is it about the holiday season that makes it difficult or more challenging to maintain a healthy eating? What is it? Jump in the chat box and just throw a few things in there. What is it about the holidays? Oh, someone said eating at other people's homes, foods everywhere, lots of sweets, other people's influences. Excellent. What else? Too many temptations. What else? Baking cookies to give away. Ooh, that's a good one. You're making them. Everything smells so good.
And Wilma says too many group get-togethers.
Yes, lots of socializing, right? Lots of socializing. Traditions. Excellent, Debbie. Traditions. How about the psychological piece? Oh, memory. I was just going to say, what about the psychological piece? And Vicki mentioned memories of grandma's food, peer pressure. But think about the psychological piece. It's the end of the year. You possibly start to think that, I've worked hard all year. Maybe I deserve this. I can drift a little bit. It's time. It's that time, that celebratory time where you start to let your guard down a little bit. All this interesting stuff. So I'm fascinated by this. The urge to reward yourself, as Clyde says, excellent, right? There's this urge to sort of say, yes, I've done it all year. And now I can sort of ease up a bit because all those temptations are around us. And so you're all hitting on the key components of this actual talk here, is to really look at the human factor, which I find so fascinating. And the essential question that I'm always grappling with in my head is, why is it so hard to navigate this world and change behavior. And again, when I work with drug addicts, this is the same conversation. What can we do to help you be successful? What do you need from us? Because again, we can talk science all day, and you can sit with a drug addict and you can talk about all the terrible things that have happened in their lives because of their drug addiction. And you can list them, you can chart them, you can brainstorm them. But when they walk out of that room from that group session that I do with them, what's going to make them change? What's going to allow them to change? And so it's a little bit of a push-pull. It's a little bit of a bunch of different factors are at play. It's not just willpower. And again, like as much as I think actually drug addiction and health and food addiction are so closely linked, because there's a stigma to parts of it, that people look down often on people who are not taking care of their health, as well as people who are addicted to drugs. And it's, what's going to allow them to leverage some tools towards success. All right. So remember, why do we love holiday treats? Well, of course, the simple reason is this. It's the salt, sugar, fat concept, which is I'm sure you've all seen Dr. Lyle and his talk about the pleasure trap and all this. And it is so fascinating to me, this drive towards salt, sugar, and fat and why we crave it. I'm sure, as you all know, we as humans crave this. We need these. Our brains are about 10,000 years old when it comes to evolution. Our brains have not evolved very much past about 10,000 years old. And so we are still wired for environments of scarcity. So just to layer in a little anthropology, but our brains are built to survive in areas of scarcity. So 10,000 years ago, when we're cruising around looking for food and you find maybe a nut tree, and your brain, you have a taste of a nice calorie dense fatty nut, your brain says, get more of this, get more of this, get more of this, because you are not sure you're going to be able to survive until the next day because you need calories. Well, now that we live in a modern world where these things are everywhere, literally everywhere, then our brains actually undermine our health by driving us towards salt, sugar, and fat, because our brain thinks it's helping us survive, when in fact it's creating problems. So this concept of choice architecture came across my radar a handful of years ago, and it's a behavioral economic term. So what is choice architecture? Well, here's an example of choice architecture. This is the checkout line at a Walmart. This has been set up exactly around the concepts of choice architecture. You are locked into a line where you are just waiting to check out, and right in front of you there's this array of choices. Never, ever, ever have I ever seen kale in the checkout line at Walmart, nor have I ever seen fresh fruit, nor have I ever seen really anything that's healthy. It's all garbage. It's all garbage. Not to mention garbage for the mind. A lot of it's those gossipy magazines, like you can see there, like the Globe, and it's beef jerky and candy, and it's all these impulse buys, impulse. So what's choice architecture? Well, if you go to your workplace and someone has set out a holiday treat table for you at work, great example of choice architecture. This is, people have put this out for you. This is the context in which you're trying to make decisions. What a mess, not helpful. Choice architecture on the positive side is also a really beautifully designed salad bar. Hopefully that salad bar is in a place in a school or in a business cafeteria that you walk into, and it's the first thing you run into, and it's beautifully organized and neat. That is choice architecture. Choice architecture is also a beautiful spread that you've put together to take to a party. That is also choice architecture. Look at that. So inviting. Look at all that great stuff. It's like some cool, like a beet hummus and a regular hummus with all these things to dip in there. That is choice architecture. So let's define here. So choice architecture refers to the practice of influencing choice by organizing the context and the environment in which people make decisions. Choice architecture theory suggests that individual behavior can be influenced by small suggestions, context, arrangement, and positive reinforcements. So this concept of willpower is something we talk a lot about in the drug world, in the drug and alcohol world, as well as in the food world. willpower, willpower, willpower. And a lot of people seem to think that willpower is everything. But really, when we take people to these immersions that are away, often when, not often, always when we structure these health immersions that Plant Strong, that Rip Esselstyn runs, they're always at the end of some dirt road out in the middle of nowhere. Well, that's actually purposeful. People come and guess what? Everybody's successful because they have no choice. They just eat the healthy food we give them, and they're trapped at the end of a dirt road in Arizona or up in the mountains in North Carolina, and they're really successful. And so this is another example of choice architecture. And so what is this choice architecture concept? Well, this guy named Richard Thaler from the University of Chicago actually got the Nobel Prize in 2017 for his contributions regarding this thing called nudge theory. He co-authored a book called Nudge, Improving Decisions About Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And his co-author is a gentleman named Esselstyn, who's a very well-known Harvard law professor. If you're in the law practice, you've probably heard his name. He's very famous. And so they wrote a book called Nudge. If you're into this kind of stuff, I love reading this kind of stuff, but it's a great book, New York Times bestseller. And it's really looking at how can we get people to make the right choice? How do we help people make better choice? And that's where this concept of nudge, nudging people towards better choices. So we have some guiding assumptions we have to take into consideration. And this one blew me away when I first learned it. People make about 35,000 choices a day. Isn't that amazing? I think if you're a parent or a teacher, shout out to Kathy, if we probably make 50,000 because when you have little people around you, they're always asking you, what about this? What about that? Can I do this? Can I do that? So you make about 35,000, and many choices are made unconsciously with little thought. We make them impulsively or we make them automatically. We don't like to spend, as humans, we don't like to spend a lot of time weighing simple decisions. We like quick thinking. And this is because, as Doug Lisle would remind us, we are energy conservators. We do not like to expend extra energy. Sometimes the word lazy is used. I think that's sometimes it's a bit of a pejorative, but humans generally are lazy. We like what is easy, and people are more likely to choose default options than to have to actually spend a lot of extra energy sorting out choices. And our environment has a huge effect on the choices that we make. And this is a really interesting idea, is that, and this is true of drugs and alcohol as well as food. And then we also suffer from something called decision fatigue. And it really plays into this idea of, when you come home at the end of a day after a long day of making tough decisions at your workplace, and you have to make a decision about food, suddenly it's like, I don't want to think about it. I just want to do it. And that's why we find ourselves drawn to the fatty, salty, sugary foods when we first come in the door that we throw in our mouth. So we just don't want to have to think about it. So here are some strategies to think about. We want to design the environments that we live in and that we travel through to make the best choice, the easy choice. And I mentioned as a few moments ago about immersions, about when we go to these health immersions, this is why people are so successful there. We want default choices to be great ones. We want to limit our choices. We want all choices to be good ones, and we want to make it mindlessly easy. This is, if there's one thing you take from today's talk, other than that leafy greens are the power vegetable, is also to make choices mindlessly easy. And I'll give you an example. So here's the example from our household. We have 3 college-age students. Well, actually 2 are out of college now, and 1 is a senior in college. And so when they come home all at the same time, we run through food like crazy. Everyone's just eating all the time. And so we did an experiment. We took a watermelon, we bought a watermelon, a whole one, and we placed it in the middle of the kitchen table. And I think you can probably all predict what happened. That watermelon sat there. Nobody touched it. Just sat in the middle of the table. No one touched it. No one touched it. No one touched it. And we ended up having to put it in our compost because it rotted. The next week, a couple of weeks later, we tried again, and we took watermelon and we cut it into big chunky slices that still had the green on it, but it was, we put it in a bowl in the refrigerator. And some people ate it. Some of it got eaten, but not all of it. And, you'd sometimes find like the rind in the bowl with it. And so this was really, again, like reminded us again about choice architecture. So then after we went through that experiment, we took the watermelon, we chopped it up into bite-sized cubes. We put it in a container in the refrigerator right at eye level in our refrigerator. And so guess what? All that watermelon was gone in about 2 hours in one morning. And this is the classic choice architecture. We made it so easy that while people were looking for something else in the refrigerator, they could just pop watermelon into their mouth, and it got eaten up so quickly. So we took away all the hurdles, right? All the hurdles that would make eating watermelon a pain. And we made it so simple. And that reminded us, oh my gosh, that's the answer. If you want to encourage healthy eating in your household with the people you love, you've got to make it painfully simple. And so I mentioned this a number of times, but again, like when studies have been done about drug use, what influences drug use, there is a genetic component to drug addiction, as there is a genetic component to people and lifestyle related, food related diseases. Environment, and lifestyle pull the trigger. And so guess what? When you do look at the studies on drug use, these are the things that come up as linked to people choosing drugs and using drugs is their home environment, the attitudes their parents have about it, the neighborhood they live in, the school they go to, the peer group they hang with, their family or their family history. I mentioned, the genetic piece, but also, again, the cultural piece of how people view drugs and alcohol. I work with people every single day in the internship that I do, where we talk about, multi-generational drug abuse. So people whose parents used and then now they use and then their children now use. And so it's so sad. But again, environment. And of course the media. So case study, a bunch of research has actually been done on cafeterias and how to arrange them to get especially kids to make healthier choices. And so what they found in that research is that these things actually affect people making healthier choices in a cafeteria. The way the food is placed and the proximity of the food. So for instance, if you put fruit at the beginning of a cafeteria line, people are significantly more likely to pick it up than if you place it at the end. And think about that. Most every cafeteria I think I've ever been to always has the bowl of fruit at the end of the line, which means once people fill their trays up, they're not going to take that piece of fruit. But if you put it in the beginning, they will. Menu design. Have you made the healthier choices look attractive, and are they listed in attractive ways? Instead of just calling broccoli, why not call it power broccoli or something like that in a school? Signage, are the signs making the choices seem more exciting? Plate size, which again, this one kind of blew me away, but if you give people smaller plates, they will eat less food, which is good, but they'll also make healthier choices, which I thought was interesting. And then pricing, it's got to be competitive in the pricing. And there's something called traffic light labeling where, they actually placed labels on healthy foods as they put a green light next to them, and they put a red light or a yellow light on foods that weren't as healthy in a cafeteria line, and people actually improved their choice in terms of taking more healthy things. So my point here is that all of this matters beyond people just knowing what's healthy and not healthy. It's the way things are presented and the context in which people are making choices. So really what we're trying to get to here is how in the world can we do this? Can we take some of these theories and help us at home during the holidays? And so here are our top 11 strategies for the holiday season that hopefully will help you all. And if you need this PowerPoint, I'm happy to send it to Kathy if she wants to distribute it. But rule number 1, you got to get rid of it. It's so challenging during the holidays when people give you these amazing gifts. But when I was a teacher, as I'm sure Kathy can relate, at the end of the year, you would always get, at the end of the calendar year, you would get all these amazing gifts from kids, cookies and brownies and cakes and all these things. And I would come home and I would let our kids have a bite of them one time, and then we would get rid of all of them. We'd throw them all away. Like, okay, everybody gets one treat, but now we're moving on because as Chef AJ always says, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. And so you really have to make your home the safe space. So think of your home as the safe port in the stormy seas of food choices in the world. Just make your home be the example. Number two, as I mentioned with the watermelon experiment, have your substitutes prepped and ready to go. These days, you can actually buy pre-cut fruit, which is always amazing to me. But if you need to just do a little bit of work around the scenes to make sure that easy choice is probably one of the best things that I've discovered in the last 10 years has been baby potatoes. Baby potatoes, if I can have a bunch of pre-cooked baby potatoes in a Tupperware container in our refrigerator, maybe with some walnut sauce or some sort of sauce to dip them in. When I come home at the end of the day and I'm really hungry, if I pop a bunch of baby potatoes into my mouth, it will fill me up. And so then I'm not tempted to go to that container of walnuts to maybe have a handful. That's the kind of stuff that we have in our house that's tempting, that can speak to me if I let it. So prep those substitutes. Strategy number three, this is kind of a classic, but don't shop or socialize hungry. Whenever I go to the store, if I'm famished, I make terrible choices. But also don't socialize hungry. We are big fans of pre-feeding. As someone mentioned in the chat, there's so many parties you get invited to and gatherings, and it's so difficult if you go hungry, because then you know that you're probably going to make a poor choice. So try to pre-feed. That's where you get into, maybe you have that handful of baby potatoes before you get in the car, because you know that the choices there are probably not going to be good ones. Even if we're talking about like the nut bowl, which for plant-based eaters, sometimes Jane and I will find ourselves at a gathering and we'll avoid all the other food because it's so obviously bad for us. But a lot of times there'll be a bowl of cashews or something, and I'll be, I'll have a little, and then I'll have a little bit more, and then I'll have a little bit more. And so just try to pre-feed. Number four, bring favorites to parties. This is probably the best advice I was given years ago, is family gatherings and parties, bring what you like to eat. It's that simple. There's two powers to that. Now, of course, there's a piece of cheese in this picture, which I didn't like, but anyway, it looked like a mostly healthy plate. But bring what you like to eat, and then you'll end up eating it. But the cool thing, the second power of doing this is that you'll also win some people over. People will say, "Oh, what is this? This is so good." And, and then you'll say, "Well, actually it's this tabbouleh recipe that I've been doing," or whatever it is, or this amazing hummus recipe. And you'll win some people over and you'll get them interested. And then maybe you'll have an opportunity to have that conversation with the person in your life who's possibly plant curious. And you can just, again, you're not going to push it hard. You're not going to get up on your soapbox and start lecturing, but you're going to say, I'm trying this plant-based thing. It's really working for me. If you're interested, I'm happy to share more. We love to bring, sometimes even if we know it's going to be like a sit-down dinner party kind of thing, that's got a spread of some sort, we'll bring a lasagna, plant-based spinach lasagna, and that's a great one. Number five, make sure you stay well stocked at home. We really, really try, like there's a certain things that we always buy when we go to the store. Like we'll always buy, a thing of beans, or we'll always buy nutritional yeast. So we always make sure we have certain things, but there's nothing more powerful and more helpful than having a really well-stocked plant-based kitchen. If you go online and simply search plant-based pantry, you'll find just so many different examples of beautifully organized lists of things you should have in your house to have a plant-based house. And like I said, whenever Jane and I go to the store, we always get certain things just to make sure we always have them. And we try to have our bulks around, our brown rices and our dried black beans and all that stuff. People often ask us, what in the world do you all eat in a week? And so here's 4 days from our house that you'll notice. I can summarize this in a second. We have oatmeal most days of the week of some sort, and that can be lots of different versions, whether it's regular oatmeal or steel cut, or we're eating them raw, or maybe we're just having a fruit bowl. But whatever it is, we're trying to eat oats every single day. For lunch, we're stuffing a pita full of a lot of vegetables and no oil hummus. Maybe we're having an open-faced sandwich. We're eating a leftover chili or stew or soup, or we're having an open-faced kind of dark rye bread sandwich with some whatever types of veggies we can pile on there. For dinner, we're having bowls, 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 bowls. That is the answer in our household, especially when we're not having guests or our kids aren't home. If it's just Jane and me, we will just pile, our favorite 15-minute meal, which the Esselstyn Foundation is going to do a presentation soon called 15-minute meals. It's, our favorite is black beans from a can with a little bit of seasoning that we warm up, whether in the microwave or whether on the stovetop, and polenta. We've become really big fans of polenta, and polenta is just corn grits, basically. For those of you, I know most of you are coming from the South, so you know what grits are. And it's just corn grits that have been, it's 3 cups of water to 1 cup of grits of cornmeal, and you just whisk it. And it's just a nice break from all the rice that we tend to eat. And then greens of some sort, whether it's steamed or fresh, we'll just pile a bunch of greens in our bowl, throw the beans and the polenta on top. And the steam from the hot polenta will sort of soften the greens a little bit, and maybe we'll use a little bit of a sauce or something. And then for snacks, we're just doing whatever's around, maybe some toasted pita chips and some hummus, maybe a avocado toast with some apple slices, maybe some air pop popcorn, or maybe just a cereal that we love. So we do not, that's us in a nutshell. We're not complex eaters, even though Jane and Ann have written all these amazing cookbooks. When we're just alone, we're lazy, energy conservation. This strategy, number 6, is one of my favorites that I learned from a friend of ours, Lori, and she has a sign on her refrigerator and it says, "But first broccoli." And I love it because what she has is broccoli that she has just steamed in the microwave and put in a Tupperware container. And so she can just throw it in the microwave, warm it up a little bit, and just dip it in hummus or dip it in like a sriracha hot sauce or something. And she fills up first on broccoli when she's hangry. Then she gets all this good stuff in before she starts to go towards other things that might not be as healthy. So just pops that broccoli in, has it ready to go. And she encourages her family members to do the same. Number 7, batch cook, batch cook, batch cook. We can't stress this enough, having stuff on hand. I mentioned baby potatoes. You can cook a sweet potato in the microwave by just throwing it in there for about 7-8 minutes. And brown rice, these days you can even buy brown rice that's been pre-cooked. But just waking up in the morning and turning on the rice cooker in our house is really common, just so we have it. Not even that we're planning a specific meal, but just making extras of things to have them around, so you never have to do that blank stare into the refrigerator or into the cupboard and say, "Oh, what am I going to eat?" You just always are going to have things around. And it works for us. Both Jane and I work from home, so there's always somebody in the kitchen milling around trying to find something to eat. And so we just like to have things on hand. Strategy number 8, setting some boundaries and limits. And so I would really encourage everybody to have a line or two in your head before you go to that holiday party, because there are going to be temptations. It's just going to be. And so whatever that line is that you are ready to have at the tip of your tongue, just to say, I promised myself that I was going to try to navigate the holidays this year, or I'm decided to cut sugar out, or whatever it is, or thank you so much, that looks so good, maybe later, or whatever the line is, to help you set some clear boundaries, because they're coming for you. That the people in your lives, many of them who love you so dearly, but want you to partake in the holiday celebration. And as we know, and as many of you mentioned in the chat box, holidays are an interesting time. Not only are they a time where lots of the context of where you're going and moving through these contexts of lots of temptation. But also there are people in your life that want you to be part of their traditions, who want to pull you in and want you to be part of their celebration. And that can mean, sometimes can be cultural celebrations that are really important to you and who you are. And just to be ready to have lines in your mind that are ready to go, that aren't judgmental, that aren't going to cause problems, that are just saying, I'm trying this, or here's what I'm going to do for this season. And, I'm so full, whatever it is, just be ready to lay out those boundaries. Number 9, I mentioned pre-feeding before, but I wanted to point this out. I love this this guy, I'm not sure you've probably seen him, but this guy, Andrew Taylor, he's from Australia. I think he's Australia, might be New Zealand. And, there's all this concern about like, are you going to be able to get all the nutrients that you need from a plant-based diet? Oh, what about this? What about that? Well, we actually have a great example of a guy who only ate white potatoes. That's right. Only white potatoes for 1 year. Isn't that incredible? So, did he die? Did he develop kwashiorkor? Did he develop a protein deficiency? Did he develop some sort of horrible condition? No, actually, he lost 100 pounds, and he claims to have cured his depression. But he's got this website called Spud Fit. But again, the idea of like popping a bunch of potatoes in your mouth. But I love reminding people about this guy, Andrew Taylor. It's crazy. I don't expect anybody to eat only white potatoes for a year, but the way that our society demonizes carbs today is so interesting and funny, really, because this guy proves that you actually will not die if you only eat carbs, and you won't gain weight. You'll actually lose weight. So as I mentioned, be prepared for the food pushers. They are coming for you. And there are lots of people in your life who love you dearly, who just, as Doug Lisle reminds us, there's two people that will tempt you. There are the people that really don't know the science, who just, want to tempt you because they don't really understand the pleasure trap. Then there are the people that do love you and also understand the science, but they're kind of a little threatened by the fact that you're making healthier choices. And that freaks them out a little bit, and they kind of want to drag you in, and they want you to be a part of their life. And sometimes bonding around food is part of that. And so just know that it doesn't mean that they're evil. It just means that they want you in their life. And so you have to be ready. And Doug Lisle talks about this. The strategy for this is to just be complimentary, be kind, be compassionate and empathetic, but to not budge on your values. And so to say, that looks so good, maybe later, or, I'm so full, or, gosh, that looks fantastic. I'd like to give it a try maybe before I leave, or something like that. That's going to push them aside a little bit, and you've created your boundary for them. Last but not least, strategy 11, be ready with better substitutes. Anne and Jane in their cookbooks have a number of recipes, and in a moment we're going to share some thoughts and ideas, because ultimately I always remind myself and try to remind myself that collectively we all know more than I know, and I would love to hear some of your suggestions and thoughts and ideas about things that you do to help navigate the holidays and some of your favorites. But for us, here are some things that we like to always sort of fall back on, is to have better substitutes. So we have air pop popcorn. We have a large Jewish population in our city here in Cleveland. And so we can get whole wheat matzah at most every sort of major grocery store. Uncle Jerry makes pretzels that are healthy. You can get them salt-free and whole wheat. And then, again, the holidays are a time for maybe a little bit of indulgence. And so we might melt some dark chocolate and pour it over some almonds, just to, if you have that hankering for something special. And again, I always have to remember, or we all have to remember that that eating is a human activity, and nobody's perfect. Not one person is perfect. And that occasionally you are going to have those urges. And so, maybe indulge with a couple of chocolate covered almonds. That's not going to do you in. I'm not saying do it, but just remember, or like our favorite, which is the tofu pudding that Anne makes, which we love, which is really just, silken firm tofu and some cocoa powder and a little bit of maple syrup in the food processor, and it's a healthier version. So you can plant strongify these desserts that look so rich and overwhelming, but actually are just a better choice in general. So just be ready with the substitutes. Other ideas. And so this is the chance, the part where I wanted to carve out plenty of time for questions. And also I want to hear in the chat box what people think about in some of their strategies and ideas. So let's see here.
So if you've got any questions for Brian, or if you have some ideas that have worked for you, why don't you share those as well? And Brian, one thing that I wanted to ask was, I happened in on a grocery store tour that Rip was doing, and that was a long time ago. But I remember him telling that someone asked, well, what if, is it okay if I just eat this a little bit and maybe just sample that one time? And he said, you won't be pleased with yourself if you do that. It just won't work as well. What did he mean by that? What was his?
Yeah. So Dr. Esselstyn and Rip, well, first of all, it's always important to remember that Dr. Esselstyn specifically, his clientele are people that are very sick. These are people that have had 3 stents, 2 bypasses, they've had a vein cut out of their leg and sewn into their heart. And so Dr. Esselstyn does not give anybody this idea that you can indulge a little bit at times. One of his favorite stories that he tells is how he was counseling a couple one time, and the wife happened, the husband was riddled with heart disease, and the wife asked, well, what are the cheat days? And so Dr. Esselstyn said, wait, cheat? What does that mean? And she said, cheat, CHEAT. And he said, no, none. Like, if you've worked your whole life to develop this horrible disease, and the idea that you would ever sort of let anything pass through your lips to damage your heart any further is just scary. And Dr. Esselstyn has patients who have started to drift a little bit and will start to eat maybe like occasionally have an Impossible Burger or something, and they start developing angina right away because they have some serious disease. But again, I think, and Doug Lau reminds us, and Rip reminds us too, that after you've down regulated your taste buds from this overly enhanced and artificially enhanced foods, you don't want to go back. And so, I get that, but I also feel like we're human. And I feel like even Dr. Esselstyn, every year for Christmas, we give him a pack of Reese's peanut butter cups, and he will have one. That's how powerful and strong he is when it comes to that. But again, I think that, you want to be as strict as you can, but I also don't want people to beat themselves up because they had a chocolate covered almond. But like drug addiction, I think you do have to be careful because there are people out there that can't stop at one. And Ann Esselstyn's actually one of them. And she hates the holidays because people often give them things like chocolate covered almonds, and they say, oh, and then Ann will have the entire bag. And so she can't do it. That's just her nature. She admits it. She's like, some people just know it about themselves, and she knows it, that if it's in the house, it is literally in her mouth.
Yeah, that sounds good. There's a lot of stuff being shared in the chat that of things that have worked for them. I don't know if you can see them.
Yep. Let me pull up the chat here. I had it up, but then
So Michelle says she brings a vegetable tray to parties.
Yep.
She has something to eat.
Large salad. That's another strategy that we use. We'll bring a big giant salad with all kinds of great stuff with a good dressing, so we can eat that. Mm-hmm. Wilma says she's eats before she goes and then brings a variety of healthy, nice looking food samples with me. Yep. I mean, for us, like the stuffing is a big one we bring. Like I said, the spinach lasagna is another one we bring. Mashed potatoes that Ann makes it's all on YouTube if you want to see that. That's another one we bring if it's a big holiday gathering. But if we're going to a house that's not a plant-friendly house and we have to just make an appearance and shake some hands and say hi, we'll always pre-feed. That's our big one. We just pre-feed, and maybe we'll bring a vegetable plate with some hummus or something that we can nibble on. And Jane and I are not drinkers. Jane has never been a drinker, but I, used to drink socially, and I don't even do that anymore. And that's another interesting kind of, another strategy that I've learned about that is just to get a seltzer water and have it in my hand. So there's never that sense of people don't see and say, oh, let me get you a beer. Let me get you a glass of wine. I just always have something in my hand. They don't know what it is, and just keeps people from asking.
Yeah. Debbie and Linda, did I miss any questions that may have popped up early during the presentation? I know there were lots of comments.
I haven't seen any questions, Kathy.
Okay.
I'd love to know if anybody has any other strategies they use that are helpful, because again, the holiday season, I think, as Clyde mentioned, it's really a time of often for us is reward. Is you feel like you've been so good all year, and then suddenly all these treats are around. You're thinking, I've worked hard. I can do this. I can reward myself. And
I use sometimes what I'll do with food pushers is I've had so much to eat, I'm full. Can I wrap up a piece and take it home?
great one. Can I wrap it up and take it with me? And then it doesn't make it, probably past the garage, garage trash can. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah.
My question is, why do we think we have to reward ourselves?
Oh, that's a great question.
What have we done? What have we done?
Well, so I can answer that as a budding sort of therapist, or I can let other people answer.
Go for it, Brian.
So my sense is that there's a psychology to the way, in life, there's ways we motivate ourselves. And I think that one of the ways we do that, I'm a runner, why do I go out and run for miles and miles and miles? And I think it's that I'm searching for that feeling I get at the end, that little sort of surge of dopamine and serotonin and that feeling of accomplishment. And I think we really are this strange animal as humans. We like to sort of set goals and reward ourselves and set goals and reward ourselves. And that's the sort of modes of happiness that we go through in our lives that have a lot to do with achieving goals. And I think in that process, there is this built-in sense of like a reward. We want to reward ourselves. And I think it's just a really interesting psychological piece. It's really what the holidays are all about, if you think about it. Most holidays are structured, if you look at them historically, they're structured around the celebration of some sort after a lot of hard work, whether it's the harvest, right, or the year, or making it through the winter, or a birthday. All those things often have kind of a marking of time, and out of that comes celebration. We're still alive, and we've made it.
Yeah. And Vicki says that because of that reward attitude, often as a child, we were saying, oh, you get a treat and it's food and it's not a good food.
Right. I think about my dog all the time. I'm amazed how often I learn about the world through my dog. I think about how, for him, in order to motivate him to do certain things, I have to give him treats. I don't have to, but I have chosen to. And again, he starts salivating as soon as I move towards the treat bin. It's just so interesting, to watch an animal. Someone asked, why don't you endorse smoothies? That's a great question, Valerie. Thanks for that. So smoothies are interesting. Dr. Esselstyn is not a fan of smoothies for a number of reasons, because first off, a lot of people that we work with are trying to lose weight. And it's really important to recognize that when you make a smoothie, think about what you're putting into it. An apple, a banana, 2 bananas, maybe a carrot, some, a kiwi, some oat milk. Maybe you're putting a handful of oats in there to give it some body. And there are people out there, which is shocking as it is, who are using coconut oil or all these other things. And so, believe it or not, smoothies are shocking numbers of calories. 400, 500 calories in a smoothie. So the first piece is that we're really trying to help people be careful about calorie density. And remember, when you drink a smoothie, it does not fill you up. Liquids don't fill you up. So you might be a quarter of your stomach may be full, but you've just taken in almost 25% of your daily caloric intake. So you've taken in, 25% of your daily caloric intake. So that's a big piece. The other piece is what you're doing to your body when you drink a smoothie. When you're drinking a smoothie, all that sugar, because most of it is sugar, is going into your system and it's overwhelming your liver. Your liver's trying to adapt. And so you've just dropped this calorie bomb of all this glucose, all this into your body, and you've taken out you've ground up all the fiber. So the digestion process has not been slowed down. And so it's hitting you all at once, and suddenly your liver's having to blast all this insulin into the system to deal with all this. And so it's not necessarily great for your liver either. And so, but Dr. Esselstyn says if the only way you can get your greens in is through a smoothie, you just can't stomach eating greens, then I guess that's what you got to do. But just recognize that a 500 calorie smoothie is not necessarily doing you any favors. And let's face it, the smoothie world is out of control. I mean, these days, a lot of our kids, their friends come over and they've just been to Starbucks and they've gotten a super mocha frappuccino, something smoothie. And the thing's like 800 calories. It's insane. It's out of control.
Yeah. Well, Brian, we could do this all afternoon.
Yeah.
This was really helpful and gave us a lot to think about so that we can make it through the holidays and then start our new year too with our continued journey towards health. And we want to say thank you. So
absolutely.
Before we say thank you, though, Linda's going to post the Esselstyn sites again. Is there something else you'd like to say about the Esselstyn Foundation? She's going to put the website, the next event. Tell them what's coming up next.
Yeah. So next Tuesday, we're doing a live YouTube event at 7 p.m. And if you just search Esselstyn Foundation, you can find our YouTube channel. But I'll send out emails if you're on our email list. But we are doing, Dr. Esselstyn turns 90 next week. And so we're doing a little celebration where it's going to be a celebration of Dr. Esselstyn's 90th birthday and holiday treats. So if you're interested in getting some recipes about some holiday treats to make that are always fun to maybe bring to parties and or have for yourself that are healthier versions of some of the foods that are out there for the holidays to help you navigate the holidays, then join us. It'll be about 45 minutes. It'll be live on YouTube and there will be a recording as well. So I'll send it out, the recording link out on our email list. And then I know that Kathy gets it if she wants to share that with the Chat and Chew group or whatever. Feel free to do that.
And I think the link that Linda posted, that may be two links that just got stuck together. So can you post them again, Linda?
Let me take a look at that. We'll make sure we get it up.
Put the webpage on one chat and then put the next event.
Oh, you want them separated? Okay.
Yeah. And then also, as we say thank you, she's also going to put in another chat the Esselstyn YouTube Foundation channel so that you can take a look at that, because Brian is a star of a couple of videos on there. And the one I like so much is when you're cooking outside and you use your leaf blower to boost the fire.
Yeah, we've started a guy named John Fitzgerald, a good friend and health coach, and I have done some videos called Plant Bros, and it's really trying to get at this notion of men and manliness and how hard it is for men to make healthier food choices. And so we try to make these really easy recipes, but we try to integrate as many tools as we can to attract men.
Well, because you like tools so much, we want to say thank you. Can y'all see that one okay if I make it a little bit bigger? This is our thank you that you'll get tomorrow from Dear Son. It's an infrared thermometer for food, and it's some stuff that men like, you said. And you can point it at the food when it comes out of the microwave, and it just reads the temperature so you don't scald your tongue. So
that's awesome. I will definitely use it in the next Plant Bros video.
Sure,
and I'll be sure to thank Chat and Chew. Absolutely. That's so nice.
Well, thank you, Brian. This was really good. And I know that we've gotten some comments in the chat how much this meant to them. Also, we're respectful of your time. So we're going to if you feel comfortable, go ahead and leave now. But now we're going to tell what our next events are coming up. If you're interested in that, stay with us. Thank you.
I want to hear what your next event is.
Okay, Debbie, hand it off. What are we doing next?
Well, Dr. Greger is going to be in person with his new book that just came out this past Tuesday, How Not to Age. He will be in Lakeland at the First Presbyterian Church. And this is, of course, from Polk Wellness Professionals and Chat and Chew More Plants. This is a free event. If you put your phone up to the UR code or the QR code right there, you can register. And it is limited seating. So if you are able to join us, that is great. But if you get a ticket and find that you are not able to, please send your ticket back, because we know that usually 20 to 25% of people don't show up, but we will probably be cutting the registration early because we'll be packed. So anyway, we hope you will join us. This will be great. And I hope you'll get his book. We will be selling books there, or Books A Million will be selling them. And he will be staying after and signing the books for us.
And this is in person, not on Zoom. So we hope that anybody in this area can attend. Linda, you want to put up the Eventbrite link in the chat?
I think it's there. It's there.
Great, thank you.
Kathy, I do want to mention though, you will be putting the video on Chat and Chew YouTube after the event, correct?
Exactly right, Debbie. I'm glad you remembered that because I had forgotten. It will be there probably the week after the event, and that's on the 5th, right? Yes.
Correct.
So put it on our YouTube page. And when you're there, subscribe, because that way you'll know if you check notifications that it's up there. Okay. Anything else, Deb?
That's it.
Okay. I'm going to scroll through these real fast. You know, we're all about living well and living long, and the Blue Zones can teach us lots from that. So we had 4 members who went to Korea in October, and Wanda Huberman from National Health Association is going to join us for an interview. So there will be a video that'll pop up probably about the 3rd week in December if you want to get geared up for how not to age with Dr. Greger, and Wanda's going to share with us some of her insights. There'll also be a resident of Ikaria who will be talking to us via, so you'll want to see that. And it'll be on the YouTube, as will Brian's video next week, after we take some of the pauses out and edit the video. And as to kick you off for January, not only is it Greger, but there'll be a new podcast, and this is Dr. Jamie Delaney, and she's going to help you crush it with your 2024 exercise plan. So let's see, now you were going to put the link to the YouTube page, Linda, and now if you'll put the link up for the podcast page so they can see when it comes up, and you might want to subscribe to the page when you know we put a new one up. We also are going to finish with an exciting interview. And Vicki, you tell us about this. This is with Ruth Morley, and it'll be coming on the YouTube page as well. Tell us about Ruth, Vicki.
Well, I'm a little intimidated that I'm the one that's going to be interviewing Ruth, because she's just pretty unbelievable. She walks, hikes, and Brian will appreciate that. She follows Dr. Esselstyn's strictest protocol for heart disease reversal.
Yeah,
And
she came to our house and visited when she was hiking through Ohio, and she's impressive. She, like, all of her snacks are totally 100% whole food, plant-based, no added oil, no salt, no sugar, like amazing.
Wow.
She is. And she's going to be with us. Actually, she's going to be visiting us before she starts her second part of the Florida Trail. So Kathy and I are going to get the privilege of actually meeting her when she's here in Florida. But in the meantime, we're going to have the interview, and it's just one you're not going to want to miss. Now, this is an interview. It's not going to be live with questions and answers, but I think it's going to be good. We've worked up some good questions for her, and I've heard her speak. You don't have to ask her a lot of questions because she loves to talk about what she does, and she's Ruth Mazing is what she is. So we're going to have her in January too.
Okay, so you've got some things that are coming up in January to help you start your new year off. Linda, you want to put Ruth's blog website page? Because you follow her. Once she starts in January, she'll tell you about what she's doing in Florida. And also there's a 2-minute video link, Linda, you're going to put up. That's about the Florida Trail. So you can learn more about what her goal is, where she's going and all that.
Let me add one more thing too.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff in that chat box. So everybody wants to save the chat box. And it's different on different computers, but either at the bottom of the chat box or at the top of the chat box, there's some little symbols. You'll see a smiley face, what looks like a piece of paper, and then 3 little dots. Click on those 3 little dots and save chat box will come up. Click on that. And when this is all done, Zoom will automatically save it on your computer. I know some of you have done it before, But if you haven't done it before, you want to save that chat box. There's some good information in there and all the links Linda's been adding. So don't forget to do that before you sign off.
Okay. And Linda, did we miss any links telling them that they were going in there?
I don't think so. I think we have everything. We have, did we get the blue zones? Did we talk about the blue zones?
That one you
interviews?
can, yeah, that one you'll just have to go to the YouTube page because we don't have them up yet. So we don't have a link. So
Okay.
that,
All right. So
thanks for bringing that up, Linda. Okay. Well, we want to say thank you for coming. And thank you, Brian. Oh, this was just so comfortable. I'm sorry that we went over a little bit today, but hopefully you got some information that can help you.
All right. Take care, everybody.